Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this beautiful live stream on the 30th of June. And today I am joined by three lovely people and a cat. I see a cat as well. I am very happy. So let's go from left to right. I'm Mott Purkey, community management. Introduce yourselves, Mott Bolton, and say hi.
Hey everybody, I'm Mod Bolton. Just for a note, it's not Bolton like Game of Thrones, it's Bolton like the singer Michael Bolton. I'm the head of influencer, both support and marketing for Jagex.
Cool.
I'm Ryan, or the RS guy. I basically play a lot of RuneScape.
And was our PAG champion, don't forget.
And was the PAG champion, that is true too.
Nice, I'm Mod Kalea, and I'm leading up the ninja team with a cat.
What's the cat's name?
Cat is called Toga.
Toga, I like it.
He's a cuddle bucket.
I can tell he is. I'm going to try and get a little bit more in frame, but aside from that, let me get into the information section, and then we're going to talk an awful lot about the PAG and how it's kind of got a little bit of a PAG retro, you could say. But before we do that, we've got Twitch Prime. Ooh, I'm going to lower my camera a little bit. Twitch Prime, make sure you get that. It's currently 80 Hearts of Ice, 20 Treasure Hunter keys, and 400 ring coins. So if you've not picked them up yet, make sure you do. It's a nice little bonus. It's also worth noting that the highly anticipated Tier 92 changes have finally gone live on last Monday. So check them out. If you've got your armor, you can fix it significantly cheaper now. Initial costs are slightly higher, but it's a nice change overall, aside from some other cool changes, for example, to the Wicked Hood, and they were all brought to you by the Ninja team. So check those out. And then last but not least, I'm just being filled with joy that I can hear the cat purr, which is really cool. I can hear a little bit of a purr, but I don't mind that. After yesterday's update, there were some people that struggled to log in. We are still on the chase, and about an hour ago we did give another update, and I'll just quickly read that out to give you the latest update, really. And it reads as follows. Following our investigation, we have deployed an update for RuneScape Mobile, Android Early Access, and the RuneScape iOS Closed Beta that resolves login issues on both platforms. Unfortunately, due to the way RuneScape iOS Closed Beta operates, this fix may take up to 24 hours to take effect on Apple platforms. Once the update for iOS becomes available, you'll need to grab the latest version from the Test Flight app. If you have notifications enabled, you will receive one as soon as it arrives. And then, of course, we thank you for your patience throughout this process, and we'll see you again in Gillinor. So I hope that alleviates the majority of the concerns there. And that's the end of the informational section. So then we can start talking about PAGs. It's been a ride. This has been going for about 2 months, hasn't it, Mott Bolton? You started this initially.
Yeah, so we kicked this off a couple months ago, so it was maybe a little bit. I should give you guys a little bit of a generation of sort of where it came from. Actually, so this was something where we took a look at a lot of the ways we were collecting player feedback. And the executive producer and some of the leadership team on RuneScape 3 came to me because I had a lot of experience running player councils at previous studios. So I did some time at CCP Games running the Council of Stellar Management, and I spent some time at Riot Games doing, amongst a lot of things, organizing some feedback sessions with influencers and expert players and pro players for future game development, both on things like League of Legends and games that are now that you would now know as whatever. Other titles, right? And so, but being a part of development, all of those, I was able to see, where the weaknesses were, where the difficulties were, how they weren't really working in a lot of instances for serving both the needs of the developers and the both the developers and the players that volunteer their time themselves, right? So, really trying to find a system that's going to maximize the investment from both sides. So we looked at can we come up with a system here that's going to give developers the right expert feedback when they need it in a way that's going to be trusted so that they can have clear expectations about the outcome, but that also the community can get insight into the conversations that were happening. This isn't meant to replace getting general community feedback. This isn't meant to replace surveys. This isn't meant to replace news posts. the idea here was that there are some times when things are really, really deep. They're very, very nuanced issues, and it takes somebody with a lot of experience in that issue to be able to really lay it out in a way that's consumable for somebody like a developer to make changes. And when it's a developer that has the expertise, that's great, but that's often not the case with a game as big as RuneScape or even old school RuneScape as well. So we designed the PAG system to really dovetail player feedback and expert feedback into the development process, and that's sort of where the whole idea generates from.
Cool. Thank you very much for explaining kind of what the PAGs are as well. Can you give us a brief rundown of what the Ninja PAG is as well before we kind of start diving deep into it? I think we need to know what the Ninja PAG is, what it was about a little bit. Could you fill that in as well a little bit for us?
Awesome. Yeah. So the Ninja PAG is the first ever run of this process. So we really wanted to see, how does it work? Are we on the right track? How much investment does it require from both sides? Is it an equitable investment for both developers and players? And at the end, what sort of results do we get? And the Ninja PAG was based around the idea of finding Ninja Recon, going out and reconning all those little changes that the Ninja team can make, but that are so spread out and so diverse that they can be tough to identify with the level of depth required to make a really strong change and make a really strong adaptation or fix to those things. So we looked sort of at a bunch of people that we thought would be strong leaders for the team. The leader of the team is a paid position because it is quite a lot of work. This is in many ways think of it like a special investigator or a contracted advisor to go out and conduct the team and lead all the resources. We looked at a lot of people that were both player experts and that we felt had could handle the scrutiny that comes with being a representative of the wider community. And we were able to land on RS Guy. We had some really great conversations with at RuneFest and following up RuneFest, feedback on a lot of development stuff that he was able to surface to us. And we thought we had the right guy with that. So we worked with RS Guy to make the very first PAG and sort of meet the needs of Mod Kalaya and her team.
Cool. Thank you for the rundown of that. How has, if you look back at this experience as a whole, Ryan or the RS Guy, I'm not sure what's easier to call you here, so everyone recognizes you as well. Yeah. We'll go for Ryan. I think everyone knows you're Ryan as well. How has the experience been for you on the other side? Like, do you agree with everything that Mod Bolton said here as well? And is it exactly how you interpret it as well?
I mean, super complimentary, and thank you, and of course. But yeah, that was process-wise. That was pretty much the rundown, and that was the objective of the project. It was definitely different from sort of what I normally do in my day-to-day as a content creator, as a streamer. But it was a really good challenge, and it was, like Mod Bolton said, it was a lot of work. I think I'm really proud of what we got done, and I think I put pretty much everything I had into the PEG while it was running. So yeah, it was good.
Mm-hmm. You said you've put a lot of effort and time into it as well. Can you give a little bit of an insight of the bits and bobs you did for the PEG, or like how many time you spend on it?
For sure. So it was the first PEG, and as a part of that, a lot of it sort of came into view as it was progressing. So the objectives changed fairly frequently, and a lot of the formats weren't set up. So how are we going to collect information? How are we going to display it? How are we going to present it? So a lot of those things sort of had to be developed and fleshed out as ideas as it progressed. First thing I did when the PEG was announced is the team formation, which I think we're gonna talk about a little later on. But that took an absolute ton of time in terms of just player outreach and meeting as many people as I possibly could and reading as many applications as I possibly could, and then actually getting on calls with people at all hours of the night to see if they'd be a good fit on the team. And I didn't have a ton of time to find people that met a really specific set of characteristics I thought would play well into this sort of program. And then once the ball was rolling, it was just a lot of meetings, a lot of time with that team, probably 10 plus hours a week, just on calls with them, going through every single item we wanted to bring up to make sure we could all agree on and understand all aspects of the game, not just the things that we maybe generally focus on.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I'm still amazed with the 10 hours plus meetings each week. That's a lot of meetings, which is good to hear. But I'm glad to hear. Like, I find it interesting to hear your side from it in that sense as well, because we've got a plan, and you've already have a lot of experience running these kinds of course, Bolton, because you've done it for the companies in the past. But then, it is a kind of, you need to reinvent the wheel, and we need to figure out how it works for us. So it's great to hear that there was also a good, interesting perspective or process from your side. I'm gonna move back to the script a little bit. There you go. So I'm gonna kind of we've talked enough, I think, about what PAGs are in general. Tell me if you disagree. Great. So now the PAG has finished, right? Oh, whoa! I've got a blackout for a second. I want to go back a little bit further to the beginning, and kind of go back to how we got to the position of doing that ninja pack as a whole. Why we decided you, Ryan, as the champion, and everything else. I think that's quite important for the picture as well. Would you like to talk a bit about why that is the case, Bolton?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things that was great about Ninja for this first strike was we have the dojo, right? So this was meant to be a test to see, how effective is this versus just general community feedback. We know general community feedback is tremendously useful to the development process. Does this provide value that's different to that value? So one of the things that we were able to do is in the final product, we're able to see, hey, does this provide a different perspective, different prioritization than the dojo provides? Does this provide deeper information than what the dojo provides? Does it provide, even in some cases, ideas for how things could be different? And is the amount of time that's invested to get to those conclusions less or more, right? So one of the things we found is that, spoiler warning, is that we were really hitting on all those metrics, right? We were doing something that the dojo wasn't doing, but that was still in agreement with the dojo, right? So we knew that these are still pretty aligned. Like, this is an accurate representation of what the community is providing, but it's providing a different kind of value because of the format and because of the people that are involved. And then also working with Ryan, we knew that essentially the champion role, while Ryan's obviously a streamer and he has that sort of open perspective to the community, we needed somebody who was going to be really conscientious about that selection process and that we could trust to do that well. Because I think I said in some Reddit comments and even in internal meetings that if we see that the champion is forming a biased team, then we probably need to scrap that champion and start again, right? And that's something we were totally prepared to do, but we never even came close to that. Ryan was in a position where he was able to reach out to a tremendous amount of community groups. They were all able to nominate representatives that they felt strong were people that had really put in the work and the mileage to claim to be in a position of expertise where they could advocate for the player base. And I think we worked on and also just the plain organizational skills and kind of helping players who have, because a lot of the other process is the interface between a player and a developer, right? How do developers talk? What are the expectations? Making sure that you can take somebody who might not have any insight into what game development looks like and can bridge that gap as a team leader. We were really lucky to have somebody like Ryan who has insight into the development process because of his adjacent career, and somebody that had really strong leadership skills to guide the team. We had no disruptions. At previous places, I've had full knockdown, drag out, scream fights happen in these sorts of meetings. And in our meetings, I think everyone was just like, awesome, 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 back to back to back, pretty much for the full time we spent together. So, and the team was super understanding of, how we're handling scope, what it means to be in the team's responsibility and what's being forwarded onto other teams. So, that interface was really important. And I think for future PAGs, we're going to have to, when the development team chooses to activate a PAG, because it is something that only happens at a development team request, that we're picking champions as strong as Ryan. I think if we can continue to do that, we're going to have a really bright future for the PAG format.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a lot. I want to go back. Go to you, Kalea. I've got 2 questions. Could you briefly explain what the Ninja Dojo is? I think everyone knows. And my second question, I'll just give that so you can just do your lovely monologue as well. Is were there any advantages of specifically doing that PAG for the Ninja team as well? Were there any advantages, or what was the reason you wanted a PAG for the Ninja team in particular to begin with?
You're so going to have to ask me that second question again, because
All
I'm
right,
going to
I'll
forget
happily
it
repeat it for you.
one.
We'll do the first
But
one.
so
then.
the dojo was so it's our suggestion form, really. So we really want to hear from players of all shapes and levels and sizes to really tell us about what their specific gameplay is and how we can improve it, because we're not just looking for the people that we can see on social media. We want everyone who's playing RuneScape to come and tell us about what they're struggling with in RuneScape and what should be made better, because we know that however much outreach we do, there will always be someone who has a problem that we don't know about, and we want to hear from everyone. So the dojo is just kind of an open submission form where you can come and talk to us about what you're really struggling with, and we can kind of take that on and have a look at what we can do to help your specific gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what was
Thank
question
you.
number 2? Something about PAG.
Question number 2, yeah. So what Bolton mentioned that we will do PAGs at the request of development teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're leading in a Ninja team. What was the reason that we specifically wanted to start doing the first PAG with the Ninja team?
I mean, I think it was just a really good candidate because we're very open. We can have a look all over the game, really, and improve like every single little aspect. So as it was kind of the first PAG that we are doing on the RuneScape team, it was great to just be very open and figure out, while we're figuring out all the process and how it's going to work in general for all the future PAGs, also be able to look at anything. The PAG has been able to support us in, if something matches up with what we've seen in the dojo, then we can understand that that's a really important thing for us to look at. And also, we've got like 2 years worth of backlog to work through now, which is great, but also terrifying.
And I think from my perspective as well, like it was nice to do the Ninja PAG first, because one of the other things that tends to happen with these sorts of player development partnerships is they'll have a focus they want to talk about, and then the player will be like, okay, here's everything about the focus. While I've got you here, let me tell you about X, Y, and Z that I also, just make sure so having this to say, yes, we've got all that, we've got a pretty extensive sheet of X, Y, and Z, really is going to help, I think, make other PAGs more focused, preceding PAGs more focused.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the additions there. So if we're gonna move into that process a little bit, right? You've already mentioned that, I think, Ryan, as well, that forming that team on its own has been quite a big task as well. So would you give a little bit of an insight in how you got to the team you had right now, and what your considerations were with that as well?
Yeah, for sure. The most important thing when I was looking at making the team, a couple important things I was looking for. I was looking for knowledgeable players that were representative of a community. So whether that was being prevalent in a large Discord or anything else, because one of the big concerns when the PEG was first announced was, oh, Ryan's going to pick no-name players that don't represent us. And as a result of that, I wanted to be as careful as I could to adhere and respond to those concerns by taking people that would potentially represent them as best as possible. But not only that, I wanted people on the team that were also willing to understand the game to a level where they could really get into it with other people on the team about these things and really fight for the things they cared about. I think when you're running a feedback group or a session with people, the person that doesn't say anything isn't adding a whole lot to that in terms of value. So I ended up reaching out to a number of the larger Discord communities. I asked them and their leadership groups if they would want to nominate a couple people. I explained what the process was going to be like, what I was looking for, and then I interviewed and spoke with probably 20 to 30 people, and then I read applications from probably 50 or 60 more just in the span of 1 week. And then the end result was a team that I'm super, super happy with. Every single person on that team, I was so incredibly... it was honestly a pleasure to work with them, and they are like very much responsible for a lot of the reasons why the PEG was so successful. So yeah, that was sort of the selection process and what went into it there. So we took people from the PVM Encyclopedia, from the Achievement Hunter Discord, from the Skilling Discord, from the Clue Chasers community as well. And we also wanted people that were very knowledgeable in one subject, but were willing to learn and understand more about the other aspects of the game. So that we didn't just have people popping in for 5 minutes and leaving. So for example, we spent a lot of time talking about PVMing as we did with all facets of the game, and the Clue Score representative was sitting through all of those meetings and contributing where he wanted to. And I think that was really important too, because it also gave us a less experienced perspective on a lot of the issues we were bringing up. So if we're trying to say this niche PVM thing is this massive thing, and then someone goes, I've actually never experienced that problem, maybe we need to lower that impact rating a little bit, or that encounter rate.
Yeah, I think you took him bossing, didn't you? You taught him a couple of bosses, the Clue Score guy.
Well, at the end of the PEG, he was super into it. Like he genuinely he wanted to go out and PVM, and he messages us with the drops he gets now, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Everyone turned into an expert in all the fields instead of just a specific one in the end. Everyone
That's the
started
secret.
doing
Is
plays as well.
PAG turns you into a super gamer on the side. That's how it works.
I don't know what to say in response to this, but yeah, that was more than I could have asked for regarding this selection of that. I'm going to.
Yeah, I did. One thing. Sorry to interrupt. One thing I did like is when we did. There's a news article just introducing all the members of the PAG. If people want to go check it out. But one of the Reddit comments was basically like, "Look at these guys, basically just flexing." They had their resumes. Each of them were just so impressive that I was like, "Whoa!" When I was like typing it out, I was like, "Oh, damn!" Like, so yeah, we were really lucky that Ryan. We really feel that Ryan picked a really great group.
Cool. And then I'm going to move to you, Clay, because we had a team, and then we had a very big task, which is identify things that we can improve to our game, which I think is a relatively broad question, because you've already mentioned we've got so many different types of players, and we've got them from all the different communities. If I've got it right, I'm going to ask the question. I could, of course, be completely wrong. Were there some kind of themes in the meetings that have been held as well, Motkalea?
In the PAG meetings?
Yes.
Yeah, so definitely. So we kind of went through pretty much. We went through categories, didn't we? Really, Ryan. So we did one meeting was a giant one, and then the other meetings we started with a different category across as we were working through the month and tackling different categories on different days. And I know some of them I was just not very knowledgeable about it at all, because it wasn't my play style, which is another great thing about the PAG is teaching me bits about pieces of the game that I didn't know, but clearly really bugs you guys, and really important changes there that could be done.
For
Can you
sure.
give a bit of go for it, Ryan.
I was going to say, just to jump in there as well, having the opportunity to see a problem, have an expert that understands why it's significant, and be able to present that to the devs and to Mod Kalaya specifically, was really, really good, because it's exactly what the PEG was designed for in terms of finding niche things that maybe you'd take a look at, and if you're not familiar with that aspect of the game, you might not see it as significant of an issue as it may in fact be. That's all I was going to say, though. Back over to you.
And also the fact that the dojo is a tremendous resource for getting a lot of different submissions, but we were able to, with the PAG, provide both an impact. So when this happens to you, how painful is it as a player? What is the opportunity for you to have a much better experience? And then how frequently is it going to happen to you? To really give us a sense of, not just that, is this a problem, yes or no, but where is it a problem in the context of a lot of work that the Ninja team has to do? Mod Kalaya said, this is beyond just the Ninja PAG strike that's coming in July. There's 2 years probably worth of stuff that can be pulled from on this backlog. So making sure that we have that documentation to reference back to is really important.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask to you, Motkalea, could you give a little bit of insight into the various themes or categories that we've kind of used for those meetings?
So I think there were 5 kind of sheets that we categorize. So is PVM bossing, PVM slayer, clue scrolls, skilling, and then the other one was just other. And those are kind of the 5 big categories. I think Ryan pulled a face, so I'm wondering if I've missed one or two.
No, I think you're good. No, you're good. Unless I'm mistaken
those
too,
are
which
the...
is possible.
I don't think any of you two are. I mean, I was not
Iron
involved in
Man.
this meeting,
Yeah,
so
you
I
missed
believe
one.
anything.
Iron
Oh yeah,
Man.
we missed Iron Man. Oh no!
Oh, we did.
I was like,
Iron
you
Man.
definitely missed one.
No.
The Iron
There's-
people are not going to be happy about that one.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a solo ride, so not much we can say about that. Yeah, no, I was trying to come up with a good Iron Man joke, not succeeding with that.
Pressure's on.
We'll put that in the fridge. We've gone through the process. We've also had these meetings. These meetings, I imagine, occurred on a weekly basis. Something like that.
So we met up
Yeah.
every Thursday night, I think. I think
Every
it was
Thursday
5
night.
meetings in the end. 5 or 6 actually.
There's
Yeah,
too much to go
had a
through.
good short through. There's lots.
One
lots
initial
to go
sync meeting. Yeah, it was one initial sync meeting with Ryan, 4 team meetings to discuss topics, and then a 5th final retro meeting with the full team.
Mhm.
Retrospective for those of you who don't speak jargon.
So we've gone through the pack now. We're kind of reaching the end of the pack, which is kind of this live stream is probably part of as well. It's like this retro part, or like what is the outcome of the pack? What has the pack given us?
A lot of stuff
So
to do. I almost swore then. I almost came out with a swear. Tons of stuff to do. So obviously we've got the PAG strike coming up in July, which will kind of be a sprinkling of everything across all the categories, and we've got that out. And then I've got one more planned in at some point in this year, and then we're going to be having them throughout the next couple of years. I think of just concentrated strikes on the main tackles. But there's also bits like some of the things that the PAG team put as really important that I know we might not be able to jump on very soon. I've passed that on to other teams. If they're coming up with content, I've said, hey, PAG said this. If you want to, it's right here. Take it. If you can do something with it, that would be really, really great. Because we're all one big RuneScape development team, and so anything we can get out for the players is great.
Thank you. So we've got a massive list of things that or suggestions to us, and now we are going over these, and we are going to try and get as many of them as quick as possible into game. And if they did not fit the ninja scope, we pass them on to the team. I'm gonna.
We have 328, if you're curious.
328. That is a lot. So I can imagine that is gonna take a while, and I imagine along the road there will probably be a couple of that. I don't know. Did we do a technical feasibility on all of those as well, or because
not
supposed to be
yet?
Not yet. There will probably be a few that will fall off that list as well, but like you might expect them to trickle into the game slowly. I'm also gonna look at you, Kalea.
You keep doing that.
I mean, I'm looking kind of at all 4 of you, or all 3 of you.
I don't know how eye
myself
contact
as
works on
this. It's tricky, You've got like a small screen that I have to look at, so I will see all 3 of you in a blink of an eye, including my own beautiful face. But can you give a little bit of a hint of when we're going to expect an initial group of them to trickle into the game?
July.
July.
Yep. July is our first PAG strike, and as said, it's just kind of a sprinklings from all the categories. I hope we're putting the finishing touches to it at the moment. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good.
And I think
But then,
correct me if you. Oh, go ahead. Correct me if you're wrong, Maklaya, but I think the ninja team is also spooling up and wants to make these ninja strikes even more impactful as they come across the year. So this is something where not just in July, July is going to take sort of off the top, as you said, but these are going to be coming in both in another PAG strike that you mentioned, but then spattered into topical strikes. Hey, we're doing something on bossing. Let's go check the sheet. What do we got off here? The same we would do for the dojos.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like the PAG obviously mentioned all the T92 stuff as well, and we managed to get that out this week. Like there'll be bits from the PAG coming out probably most strikes, because it's been really good to have those issues kind of highlighted to us, and when it's appropriate and when it's good, we'll be sticking them in where we can. But yeah, I also do want to do kind of concentrated. The PAG was really passionate about maybe this category, so let's just go out and smash it.
I'm going to go off script again, Kalea. Are you able to? Are you in a position to already tease one of the things that we will see in that PAG strike by any chance, or would you like to keep that secret?
I keep everything secret. We're the ninjas. We're sneaky. Oh no, I don't want to give it away. No, it's all secret. Sneaky ninjas.
All right, then we'll keep it a secret. I'll leave that with you. So we've got this list, right? And this is kind of the PAG process done. What are the other things that we will be presenting to the community in the end? So would we, for example, give them the full list of the final list that got presented to us? Will we give them a recording of the meetings if we have that? Like, what are the next things to finish this this PAG really?
So from our side, we're not going to be sharing the actual submissions themselves. We think it's important that there's like a feedback loop that can happen there, where if the community knows we have this on the list, it can create biases and player need. And then also, we just want to leave people open to surprises, right? Surprise and delight. But then in terms of meeting minutes, we have a very lightly redacted set of meeting minutes that Ryan so lovingly produced for us, that we'll be pushing out in our retro post. And that's also going to contain some more information about the numbers of things we had. But yeah, we're going to be working on that. And then the big one is going to be on changes we'll make to the PAG process. Well, not the big one. We're going to be actually making very few changes to the PAG process itself because the first round was so successful. Just some changes to criteria for membership and stuff like that, just to prevent some NDA conflicts and the like. So, I think as we move into the next one, we're going to be also making sure that we're keeping up with the charter process. So anybody that hasn't had a chance to check out, every PAG has a charter that the community gets to see that's going to contain sort of the working agreement that we're going to have with the PAG. That may change slightly. We're going to find some way to live host that. So for instance, we changed it this time to widen the categories, the number of categories and people we were looking to bring in. So we're going to find a place where we can make that more of a living document, so it's constantly reflective of how the PAG is operating. So every PAG is always going to have a charter and is always going to have a retro, so that the community can be informed on what is the appropriate level of visibility, right? So maybe not exactly what we're doing, but what the PAG is intended for, and when the results come out, how much effect it had on the results will be something we'll be doing for every single one.
Okay, so I mean, I said a couple of times that the PAG is kind of finished, but we still need to do that last bit about the retro.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
And that's gonna come closer to the actual PAG strike in July, just to make sure that we're keeping everything bookended in a proper way, because it's really hard for us to say, oh, really successful, great all around, before any results have actually come out to the community. In the future, if there are more long-looking PAGs where we're not going to have the feature release for a couple months, then we will probably do the retro immediately. Because this one we were able to move so quickly, and the Ninja team in general is able to move so quickly, we decided to hold until the release.
I mean, you just answered my next question that I was going to ask. Do you have some kind of timeline on this?
You keep saying the PAG is closed as well, and I'm going to be talking PAG for years. I can't get around my head that the PAG is finished.
The PAG consultation is over.
Yeah. The Ninja PAG is complete. The PAG process is complete. The data is still always going to be useful, and it's important for people to understand that PAG there can be PAGs for anything that a developer needs. Even if another team in Jagex that isn't RuneScape or old school RuneScape needs a PAG, that's something that we're ready to facilitate.
I see you're already jumping to the next question. What did you want to say, Ryan? Go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna jump in really quick because one of the comments coming up in the Twitch chat a lot too is like, is an update that came from the PAG going to be marked as PAG? And we've decided, or it's been decided, that's not happening. And that's for a couple of reasons. So first off, as a PAG team, we were looking for problems in the game, potentially. We were weighting them. We were suggesting potential solutions, but we're not doing development and we're not doing balancing. That is really on the ninjas to internally discuss and do. So it made the most sense as a ninja update to just be displayed as a ninja update, although we'll be open to talking about anything that was from the PEG, like the tier 92 armor fix. That was something that was escalated potentially as a result of the PEG. But they're not going to specifically, outside of the PEG strike, be marked as specifically PEG, because we didn't do the actual implementation. We would have just potentially come up with the problem or highlighted that. Just to clarify that a little bit, if people are wondering why things aren't going to be marked one way or another, that's sort of the reasoning behind that.
Thank you for the explanation on that one. I think it's good to highlight that as well, Ryan. Then I'm going to jump to the question that you've already partially answered, Mod Bolton, which is quite broad in general. But what's the future of PAGs? You've already alluded to a little bit, but the plan is to, if there is something that comes up at the development team's request, we kind of plan to jump on that.
Yeah, so the idea here is that we want to make sure that we're respecting the volunteers' time and that we're doing this in an equitable way. So it's only going to ever happen at the needs of a development team, and they've got to have a clear goal, right? They've got to have a set deliverable that they want to achieve at the end, and it's got to be time boxed. So we're never going to do one of these where it's like, we just want these people to hang around, because that's not a fair usage of the PAG members' time. But in the future, we're already talking about what's going to be the next PAG, where's it going to fit into the process, how are we going to build the check for, do we want a PAG for this development feature into the roadmap? And I think as we get better at it, as we do it more often, more developers are going to become comfortable with it. They're going to begin understanding, hey, maybe this would be a little bit better if I was able to get a PAG involved. And as that grows, we're going to have more and more involvement. I just hope that I've got a lot of other stuff to do, so it's I'll have to find some way to organize my time in order to meet all those needs. But yeah, I'm excited for the future of PEG. I think player advocacy has a strong space, and we're onto something with the format.
Mm-hmm. Would you like anything to add to that, Ryan?
No, I think that was really that was pretty well covered.
Okay. I believe we are slowly reaching the end of the script. So, tell me if you've got any questions about the PAGs and such. Please put them in chat. I'm trying to somewhat keep up with chat, as some of you rightfully called out as well. So, if there are any questions, we can put them in there, and maybe there's some interesting to talk about that. Look at the cat again. And a question that got asked a while ago.
Not again. That's a whole new cat.
What's the name of this little?
This one's Jazz. This is the one that appeared in my last stream when we were talking ninjas or something. This is my Jazz man.
So Matt258RS asks when is the next pack group? There are currently no concrete plans as of yet, right?
Correct. We're having some conversations with both old school RuneScape and RuneScape about what the next PAG is going to be, but we don't have anything locked in. The good news is there will be a full charter and explanation when we decide to activate that process. So you'll all be clued in as soon as we're ready to start the recruitment and pick our champion and all that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. RT Hongent, are you able to elaborate a little bit more on your question? The question you asked was, what was the scope of the expertise among those players involved in the Ninja PAG? I imagine that's kind of what is it, what credibility do the people that were in the PAG have? If that is the case, there was a very lengthy news post. It was a news post, wasn't it, Mod Bolton?
Yeah.
Or was it on the forums?
I'm looking it up right now.
There's been an article where we have a quick bio. So I suggest to read that. If that wasn't what you were looking for, please elaborate a little bit more.
Yeah, it's news, and the title is "Meet the Ninja Team PAG." And just for people who are curious, I'll just list out all the. I can just quickly list the PAG members if you want. So we obviously have RS Guy, our PAG champ, and then Night Eyes, Shadow Fox / Shadowcat, Mr. Dumbledore, Lars Deluxe. Is this? Do I say this RR Man?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Lawat, Hoobs and WH, and that was our PAG group. So, and there's a full paragraph for each of them, the bio on sort of their criteria, their resume essentially. It was actually pretty it was no joke, so it's worth checking out.
Steve 20058 just put the article in chat as well, so you can click that. I see a lot of messages about Guild Wars 3 when, as we said in the past, or as I've said in the past, we're talking about PAGs. It's not really something we can comment on. We know it is a desire from the community to talk about it, and that's something we communicate inwards, and that's kind of where we are with that. Similarly, about the beach, there are a lot of people that would like the beach to return, and we did communicate that clearly. So maybe we'll see something like that happen at some point. That's about those bits. Are there any other questions about the PAG? I'm kind of quickly asking in chat. I saw that was asked lots. I thought I will just briefly address it. Did I swear?
I might have sweared.
I saw that. Oh, you maybe did. I was like, I saw it in chat. I was like, I'm pretty sure I didn't swear.
I'm a little bit bad for that.
I mean, I've sworn in the past on live stream. It's okay. Oh, look at the cat. I mean,
we're
can
all.
you come on the live stream more often, Kalea?
And you can almost see he's got like a little heart in his fur here, and it's just the most gorgeous thing. It's not showing up very well.
That is
There's got a
very
little
You can
heart.
see it. You can see it really well.
For those wondering, I'm just drinking water. It isn't mustard or sunscreen or whatever it is. It's just water.
Oh, actually, I see a question that might be interesting to answer, or might be good to answer.
Go for it.
If that's cool. So
Yeah,
someone
go for it.
asks, how much GP did the PAG make from Nex armors? So I believe that's related to the update from yesterday. So like we discussed, or like we talked about earlier, we didn't have any information on any implementations. So even if we wanted to, which no one on the team would want to, because that would be stupid, there'd be no way to. We didn't have access to that information. We were allowed to highlight that there were things that were problematic, but like Modkalaya said, we gave them over 2 years of work, and we have no info on if that's actually coming into the game at any point, if at all. So we weren't suggesting, oh, you should buff this item arbitrarily, or you should fix tier 92, make sure it uses Nex armor. That wasn't remotely what we were doing. We weren't talking about implementation. We were talking about the problems themselves, and that was the focus. So I did actually think I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, and I will say
sure
that we're way ahead of that one, right? So that is a step in the internal stages of the PAG process. Is are you opening yourselves up to potential market manipulation? And we're prepared to put watches on accounts and associated accounts for PAG members for times where we think that there will be potential market manipulation. So we're way ahead of you on that. That is something that we will be disallowing with pretty serious consequences if that happens, because it's a big breach. So yeah, we're way ahead of you on that.
Exactly. We do actively monitor accounts to see if there is a sudden urge to, if people act weirdly and suddenly decide to buy something and that then suddenly gets buffed, whatever. Next week we do a lot of those checks to ensure that the economy stays in place and that nobody is actually making any gains of that. Similarly, the JMods are monitored for that as well, as a little bit of a fun fact. So yeah. Thank you for picking that question up, Ryan. I didn't see it myself. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I think we're just going to make it a somewhat short stream. We're just going to call it a day. We can go home early. There's a question. Yeah, I saw this come up in the past, or at least Inspector is asking the question slightly different. Is there a Twitter account for the PAG in general, Mod Bolton?
No. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, we knew this was the beta version of PAG. We really wanted to test it out and make sure everything works. And we were really, really happy with the results and the high performance. So now we're going to be moving forward with making a logo, doing these sorts of things, making sure the presence is a little bit more procedural and easy to find. So we'll be doing all of that. For now, if you need to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at Jagex Creators on Twitter. That is where I am located. And that is also where you can find future influencer stuff that we'll be doing. We'll be highlighting it there.
Mm-hmm. Um, oh, this is a nice one for you, Ryan. Would you recommend the champion position that you took to any others if they were offered that? Would you do it again,
Like,
basically?
would I do it again?
If we were to ask you for a peg,
Potentially, yeah. I'd be open to helping out in some way, for sure. Although I think as a peg champion, you probably wouldn't do that exact same role multiple times. As for other people, I think it's a really interesting experience. It's a pretty crazy month and a half, and it's definitely a very, very big commitment. But I think there are a lot of people in this community that could make really, really good peg champions for future ones. It's hard to say specifically like, oh, this person would be great because I don't know what the peg is going to be on, and if it's a specifically narrow peg about something niche in the game, you'd want someone who's an expert in that field, of course.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
But
And
yes,
that
I
for
would be
us
open
is-
to help me out again.
Did you want to say more, Bolton?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
and
ahead,
that for us is the most important step in the process. Is if you don't have a strong leader for this team, the process is not going to be anywhere near as successful as we were lucky to have for Ninja. So that will be very important to us, and we're going through pretty extensive responsibility because it is a paid position, is fully contracted to make sure we're vetting any PAG champion we choose. And we will probably rotate that position just to make sure that we're keeping an equitable and fairly open understanding of player positions.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to follow up from this because I'm curious into this. Curious about this myself, Ryan. Was the peg the way you expected it to be, and like were there any things that you learned from it that you would not have thought of before?
So because it was the first peg, I think the starting point was ever so slightly scattered in terms of people having different ideas of exactly what it would look like. So I think the Jagex idea on it was a little bit different from what my expectations were, which was different from what the community's expectations were when it was first announced, where people thought I would be controlling game direction for some reason, because that makes a lot of sense, and definitely I'm qualified for that. And I think there was definitely a bit of bouncing around to sort of get into the groove of it, and there's a real figuring it out process because it was the first peg. But I think in a future peg, now that a lot of that information is out there and we've had a chance to go through it one time, I think for a future one it would likely be pretty straightforward. But for this one, it was not exactly what I was expecting it to be. But as we started moving through it, it became clear that just all of everybody's expectations, and then we were able to adapt to those and make sure everything was perfectly aligned by the end.
Cool. This is one for you, Mod Bolton. Could you see a pack being used for new content as well, or would you say it's more so reflective for existing content?
I think it could definitely be used for new content, right? So, and the question you always want to ask yourself is, does this content benefit from a really deep understanding from expert players, right? It's like getting really deep feedback about, what are we doing here? How is this different? How would you respond to this? Because ultimately, a lot of new content needs to be tuned for not just the regular player that's going to get involved at the base level, but the people who are going to try to push that content to its limits. And those are oftentimes the kind of people that are going to have that you want for a PAG are going to be the people who have perspective on both. So, I think, for instance, like, I don't want to get wet people's whistles too much, but like, this isn't something we've talked about, but if you wanted to design new mechanics for a new boss, right? What mechanics would be cool to do? Yeah, exactly. See, Ryan is really peaked over. Yeah, so that I would imagine would be a PAG group that he'd be interested in being a member of, right? So, but that's the kind of stuff where you could have really deep conversations very early on about, what about this? What about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? What do you think about this? Without having to go to the whole wide community and spoil a bunch of mechanics for a boss that they're really going to enjoy. And, ultimately the PAG member is going to get to participate in that boss at the expense of, we probably wouldn't let them do day one high scores if they know exactly how the mechanics work. But, that's still a major contribution that they could make to really elevate the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Just adding the caveat. This is you used a mechanic for a boss as an example.
Just an example. Just an
Just an
example.
example. So don't get any expectations as a result of this. Cool. I think there was I see a couple of questions about this in general, and you've already touched on it. I can see the cat in the back. I like it. And I can see it here as well. Sorry, I keep going back to the cats. It just draws my attention naturally. Yeah, no, keep doing that, please. That you want the process to be a bit more visible next time you set Mill Bolton. But generally, it still went quite successful, and there are not many changes required for next PAG. Are there any changes that you already know that you would like to make for next time?
Yeah, I think so. We're going to make a couple changes to the rules. We're going to clear up the charter as a living document a little bit better. And I think there's some questions to be done around, what should we be doing in terms of mid-PAG stuff, is like, is there a PAG where the meeting minutes can be released right after the meetings? These sorts of things to keep people informed. And then also, making sure that at the end of the day, we're getting things as clear as possible in advance. As Ryan said, there was some figuring out that had to be done, especially in week 1, week 2, and so making sure that that's laid out much further in advance, so people know exactly what they're signing up for, and can really get right into the groove without having to worry about, what's the format, where do we talk, et cetera, et cetera. Get that all set up pretty far in advance, probably around the charter stage.
Okay. Following on to that, I've seen a lot of questions in chat about like the selection and various parts of that. Would we want to make any changes to the selection procedure, or are we very happy with that?
I was pretty happy with the.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with the selection procedure. So I think you need to let the champion be a leader on their team. Right? It is a team that they choose. They also have the ability, by the way, to expel people from the team if they feel that they're not being productive members of the PAG. That's not something that we can do as Jagex. So that is entirely the responsibility of the PAG champion. We can have a conversation with the PAG champion if we feel something is inappropriate, but they are responsible for the roster of the team, so that if we're getting harsh feedback and those are legitimate positions and they're presenting them with the proper eloquence and respect to the process, then that's something that we need to hear, right? So those uncomfortable conversations are absolutely something that need to happen. So we want to make sure that those people are protected by the PAG champion system. Luckily, we didn't even, there wasn't even a bad word about anyone. It was literally all thumbs up all the way through. But we want to make sure that's safe in the future. And then also just some clarification around because many PAGs, not for this one because of the format of it, but I imagine almost all future PAGs will require an NDA, a signed NDA, and just making sure that people are aware that some jobs will have conflicting NDAs, government positions, things like that, where you literally can't agree to an NDA with us without breaking your original one. So those people would probably be excluded from the PAG group, but that's just a legal procedural requirement.
Yeah, I think team formation wise, it's kind of tough because it would be great to have like an open application and then sorting the team out that way. But then you're working closely with a group of people for probably 40, 50, 60 plus hours. And that group may not mesh well together. So I think at a certain point, it does need to be a judgment call from the PEG champion. And that's one of the things that differentiates a PEG from using any of the other many different facets of feedback that, for this one specifically, the Ninja team gets as an example. It's definitely something that we'll talk about in terms of streamlining that process, but I think ultimately it's exactly how Mud Bolton put it, where it does need to come down to the PEG champion using their judgment to pick the best people. And then if partway through it isn't working out, or they think they've made some poor choices potentially, they always do have the ability to move some people around, bring in some new names as well. Just to add in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the last bit you point out. I think is quite nice to point out. Cool. I see we're nearing the end, so please keep an eye out on the chat. I'm sure you three are reading along. So there's a question you want to answer, go for as well. I'll do the final closing bits and the informational stuff. You saw Henrik sorry, excuse me, Shogun. I'm sorry, I love you, but no. Already put it in the chat as well. He's currently looking for crowded skilling areas where we would potentially want to hide familiars. So if you've got any suggestions, please put them in the Reddit thread that he linked. If we can spam that a little bit more, it would be quite nice. Then, on Thursday, Mod JD will be back with his favorite type of stream, which is a pub quiz. So make sure you get your own drinks, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, that is up to you. Get some popcorn, and he will be quizzing you on RuneScape and some other topics. He has a pretty good theme this time. I'm not going to spoil that, I'll leave that up to him. But that's that one. And then last but not least, we've got Twitch Prime. Was it 20 treasure hunter keys, 80 hearts of ice, and 400 rune coins? Make sure you get those. Did you guys see any questions? I did just get one question from someone else. I think I've already answered that. Do you want to add anything about the Ninja Recon, by the way, Kalea, that what Shogun's doing currently?
No, I think he's kind of covered it. We're looking at areas that get very busy during busy times in RuneScape, and where some players maybe have the really noisy pets out that might affect your gameplay, and how we can fix that. So yeah, give us a shout, let us know. We'll look through everything that's suggested.
Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you, Mod Bolton, Ryan, and Kalea for joining in that case. I hope to see you again at some point.
One last thing I was going to add before we wrap, just to ruin the format. If this is like sort of the closing of the PEG journey, I did just want to say it was an absolute pleasure working with Mods Bolton and Kalea and Kari as well on the Ninja team, and to be able to actually have this opportunity. And I know Jagex put a lot of trust in me, and I really hope as a player base that the Ninja fixes that do end up coming out make you guys happy, make you guys proud, because that was the objective start to finish. And I just want to say it really was a pleasure. So yeah, thank you guys for putting that trust in me and allowing me to do my thing here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure for us as well. It was really great.
Then I just thought of one final thing before we actually go. I forgot something very important, and that is this Friday on the 3rd of July at 1 p.m. game time. There's going to be we've got a featured streamer who surprisingly is called the RS guy, who's going to do a lovely. Is it going to be a race, kind of?
It is going to be a race. Yes, I'm going to be going head to head against another streamer to get a unique item from every single boss in the game in the order the bosses were released. It's probably going to take a couple days, so we're going to be doing the first 12 hours on Friday.
Make sure you tune into that.
Awesome.
I wish you a lot of luck. I will make up my mind whether I'll join Team Cash Stack or Team RS Guy, but I think that's best to keep out of the equation here. I don't want to pick sides just yet. And with that, thank you for joining once more, and then look after yourselves and tot ziens.